All right, welcome folks. We're going to give it a minute or so to let folks jump on the line. I see a bunch of people coming in from the waiting room. But as you're joining the Zoom, please feel free to drop your name, your organization, and maybe one thing you're hoping to learn about at today's event in the chat. We love to just see who's on the Zoom and get to know folks a bit before we jump in. So I see, thank you, Morgan, for dropping that in the chat. Feel free to introduce yourself, and you can choose to answer your own icebreaker if you don't want to share something you're looking to learn today. We just want to see who all's on the line. We'll give it another 30 seconds or so as I see a bunch of folks still logging on. And I'm looking forward to first responses. Good morning from Las Vegas. Yes, thank you to those who are joining a little bit earlier in their day. Awesome. Wonderful. So I see we have a relatively critical mass. I know there's going to be a handful more folks joining as we get started, but I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in because we have a tight program for the next 45 minutes. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's event. As you probably know, it's called Inside the Changing Public Sector Hiring Landscape. This is a look at Work for America's recent From the Frontlines report. And I'm Caitlin Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Work for America. Thanks to those who are continuing to introduce themselves. If you're just jumping on the line, we'd love you to share your name, your organization, and something you're excited to learn about at today's event. But with that, we'll open up our slides and get started. So just a super quick overview of Work for America. I think many folks here are pretty familiar with our organization, or at least a piece of it. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit that is rebuilding the talent pipeline into state and local governments across the country. So through our programming, we do three things. We directly connect talented professionals to public sector roles, and that's primarily through our Civic Match platform. We also help modernize how governments recruit and hire through our Talent Accelerator program and our research, both of which you're going to hear about today. And then we work to inspire the next generation of public servants to see government as the most powerful force for driving progress. And we do that through our Civic Reset partnership with TED. We launched Work for America to help provide a voice to public sector leaders across the country and elevate their stories, challenges, and successes. And that is the purpose of today's event. This event is particularly special because in September of 2024, when we first launched Work for America, our very first ever event was taking a look at our first From the Frontlines report. And at that point, the organization was just me and Shifra, our chief program officer, and we're now 20 people strong, operating in 300 cities and states across the country, and just so grateful to have this group here today to hear about our updated report. So very quick look at our time together. First, we're going to hear from Derek Kilmer from the Rockefeller Foundation, who's going to help frame our time together with some opening remarks. We'll walk through the key findings in the report. Hopefully you all have had a chance to take a look at it. We're going to hear directly from two HR leaders who are featured in the report. They're going to speak candidly about the challenges they've faced and some of the solutions they're adopting. And then we'll spotlight one of the ways Work for America is responding to those challenges, our recently launched Talent Accelerator. We'll then close with an overview of the org's broader strategy and how you can help stay connected to this work. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker. His name is Derek Kilmer, who's going to set the stage for our conversation. Derek is the Senior Vice President of U.S. Program and Policy for the Rockefeller Foundation. Prior to that, he served 6 terms as a U.S. representative for the great state of Washington. And in that role, he passed landmark economic development legislation to help economically distressed communities. And he also oversaw the passage of more than 200 recommendations to modernize Congress. So we love folks who are not only thinking about their communities, but also getting into the weeds of process modernization in government. He's extremely passionate about creating pathways to quality jobs for all Americans. And perhaps slightly lesser known, he is one of the biggest Star Wars fans on planet Earth. So love to give a fun fact up top. We're so grateful to Rockefeller, both for their support of our Talent Accelerator program, but also supporting the From the Frontlines report that we're here to talk about today. So with that, I want to thank Derek again, and I will pass it over to him.
Thank you, Caitlin. It's great to be here. And honestly, it's just nice to be with a group of people who care about this. You don't always get HR leaders and funders and policy folks all showing up for the same conversation. So the fact that you're here says something. This is clearly an issue that's resonating. I also want to say up front, this report is terrific. It's one of those rare pieces of work that actually reflects what people on the front lines are dealing with, not just what the rest of us think they're dealing with. And that's a real credit to all of you at Work for America. So thank you for that. Also mentioned that you mentioned the talent accelerator work. That's exactly the kind of thing that makes me hopeful. It's practical, it's grounded, it's actually helping people fix problems in real time, and we need a lot more of that. Caitlin mentioned I served for more than a decade in Congress, and for a time I chaired something called the House Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress. Our job was to make Congress work better. You're welcome. Clearly, we nailed it. But in all seriousness, that experience taught me something that stuck with me. The difference between something working and not working often has very little to do with the policy itself. It comes down to whether you have great people in the roles that actually deliver it and whether the system lets them succeed. That's maybe not a very glamorous insight, but it is a very real one. When government works, it's because talented, mission-driven people are in those roles. And when it doesn't, it's usually not because people don't care. It's because the roles are unfilled, the hiring process is broken, or people burn out and they leave. And that's what I saw really every day. Stepping back even further, one of the things that we remind ourselves a lot of in this work is something simple. There are people who need jobs, and there are jobs that need people. And our job is to make that connection actually work. President Kennedy said in our system of government, we all hold office. Another way of saying that is that government only works if people choose to show up and serve. And if we make it hard for them to do that, we're going to struggle, no matter how good the policy is on paper. Back in April, the Rockefeller Foundation launched a $100 million effort to help create 1.6 million good jobs in communities that have been left behind. And the reason we're doing that is pretty simple. A job's more than a paycheck. It's about dignity, stability, a sense that you have a stake in your community. And right now, too many people are missing out on that. There's a jobs challenge hiding really in plain sight. The top line numbers look strong, but about a third of American counties are still economically distressed. About 50 million people live in those communities. And the share of working age adults that are actually working is still meaningfully lower in many of those places than the national average. So this is real and it's urgent. And so we're at the Rockefeller Foundation working with communities and states to try to move the needle on that. And at the same time, building national partnerships to help scale what works. And one thing that's become very clear as we've built that strategy is you can't do this without state and local government. In fact, you can't do much of anything without state and local government. Healthcare runs through local systems, workforce systems run through local systems, food, energy, public safety, it all runs through government. It's the infrastructure underneath everything else, and that includes jobs. In fact, government is one of the largest sources of stable, good jobs in most communities. About 1 in 8 jobs, they're place-based, benefits eligible, mission-driven, and a lot of these jobs are actually pretty resilient in the face of AI. A 911 dispatcher or a child welfare caseworker is making human decisions in moments that really matter. Technology can help, but it's not replacing that. So when I read this report, one thing really jumped out at me. We've gone from a world where governments couldn't find applicants to a world where they have applicants but can't move them through the system. That's actually progress, but it also makes the bottlenecks impossible to ignore. And if we want government to be an employer of choice, especially in the communities that we care most about, we've got to fix this. So I'll just close with this. Government is where policy meets people. Every promise we make on jobs, on health, on opportunity is delivered by someone, a teacher, a nurse, an engineer, a caseworker. And all of those people come through these hiring systems. And right now we have a moment. More people are interested in public service again. The question is whether we can build systems that are good enough to meet that moment. We don't want a system where today's applicants become tomorrow's former applicants. We don't want a system that takes people who are excited about public service and slowly helps them get over that interest. And we definitely don't want a system where people are retired by the time we hire them. So that's why this report matters and why the work that Work for America is doing matters. So I'm very grateful to them for the work they're doing and for having me.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Um, my name is Kritzia Lopez. I am the Vice President of Government Innovation here at Work for America and one of the authors of this report. So, a lot has changed in the state and local government labor market in 2025, and we wanted to understand what that meant for the people actually running these hiring systems. We conducted structured interviews and surveys with 78 HR directors, city managers, department side hiring managers, and workforce leaders from across 41 jurisdictions to find out, supplemented by insights from our partnerships. We partner with almost 300 state and local governments that work for America. And we heard from these large states and small towns, Democratic and Republican led governments, and a geographic distribution from all over the country, we heard from all of these folks to gain a broad perspective on the trends occurring in state and local hiring. Our approach is qualitative and practitioner informed, so it's designed to surface patterns, not to make statistical claims. But what we heard might surprise you. So, first and foremost, everything I'm going to share today comes from our new report from the Frontlines. That's why we're all here. But you can download this using the QR code or the link that we just dropped in the chat if you want to read further. All right, so to jump into some key findings. This is actually our second from the Frontlines report. As we mentioned before, we released the first one in 2024. And we heard one thing consistently from governments across the country that there weren't enough applicants. But in 2025, that really changed. So after speaking to leaders across the country, here's what we learned. There are three big things that have happened more or less simultaneously. First, the federal workforce contracted significantly. It's approximately 317,000 federal employees exited government service, whether through attrition, retirements, and reductions. Secondly, private sector hiring did cool across multiple industries. And then thirdly, AI-assisted job searching has made it faster and easier for more candidates to find openings and to apply to multiple roles at once. So the result of all those things is that state and local governments have started seeing higher application volumes that they haven't seen in years. There's preliminary data from NeoGov, that's one of the primary job platforms used by state and local governments. It suggests that roughly 15% more applicants per job started being seen in early 2025 compared to 2024. So about a 15% increase. In some states, we're actually seeing increases as high as 35%. Multiple independent research organizations, including Mission Square Research Institute, Pew Charitable Trusts, they corroborate this shift with the data. And worth noting is this point about whether or not that increase is an ongoing trend or just a blip that's tied to specific conditions from 2025. That's still an open question, and that uncertainty by itself is a big challenge for governments that are trying to plan. Given all that, the expectation would be that hiring outcomes would improve, right? So more applicants, better hiring outcomes, and that is not the case necessarily. So more applicants sounds really great, but it wasn't evenly spread. Many hard to fill roles like CDL drivers, that's a commercial driver's license, nurses, engineers, they remain just as difficult to hire. And even where governments did have more candidates, didn't necessarily translate into faster hiring. It actually made existing friction in the system more visible. So the constraint has really shifted from attracting candidates to converting them into hires. As one HR director told us, it's not a volume issue. The challenge is how we move candidates through the system. You can see on the column here on the right, when we asked governments what their top hiring challenges were, 69% cited slow time to hire, which is, means it just takes too long to get candidates through the system. And sometimes people will drop out while they're in progress. And you can see further down in those stats, a couple of other reasons we're noticing. All right, so additionally, our research identified two categorically different types of constraints that require different responses. The first is operational challenges. Those are breakdowns within the hiring process itself. HR teams are still manually reviewing resumes and coordinating interviews. They're really hampered by limited staff and fragmented systems. No single person has full visibility from requisition to hire start date. There are a lot of post-offer steps like background checks, medical clearances that can add weeks or even months. And those are not often recorded in reported hiring time metrics. So hiring timelines can stretch past 130 days, and there's a lot of gaps and communication issues in between. So the second type of challenge is structural. These are external limits on whom government can really realistically hire, regardless of the process quality. And a lot of that can be, for example, compensation. There are fixed pay bands, collective bargaining agreements that don't necessarily move with market factors. There's civil service rules. These are formal systems, policies governing how hiring is done. And some of these constraints can bind the hardest and most specialized roles like engineers, et cetera. For those roles that are, a little more specialized, the shortage was never really about volume. It's more about people entering those careers. So in conclusion, for anyone that's investing, leading, or supporting this work, it really matters that we expand that. So the distinction matters between expanding the top funnel, which is getting more people into the pipeline, recruiting, et cetera. That still remains critical. But 2025 made it clear that those efforts alone are not sufficient if the internal processes which governments use to hire cannot move candidates quickly enough to convert that interest into, as we say, butts and seats. Great. So one final metric that captures that gap is, according to recent public sector workforce data, 65% of state and local agencies have not begun using AI in recruitment, and only 7% identify it as a priority. So as we mentioned before, there's an opportunity here. Candidates are starting to use AI, and this burden is really heavy on all the manual kind of employees that are processing these. This may be the best window governments have had in years to get mission-driven talent to the door. And whether that translates into staffing gains depends on the process. So now we're going to hear from practitioners who have found ways to make that conversion happen efficiently. So let's hear first from Miranda Martin. She's the Director of Talent Management in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Office of Administration. She oversees numerous talent functions and initiatives, drawing on a 24-year tenure with the Commonwealth. Miranda's going to share how Pennsylvania used data to fix major bottlenecks. And then we'll also hear from Helen Smart. She's the Deputy Director at the City of Tucson. She has almost 3 decades of HR, domestic and international experience, and she's going to share more about how Tucson, Arizona has used partnerships to improve talent pipelines. I'll hand it off to Miranda, and she will then hand it to Helen.
Yep. Thank you, Kritzia. I'm very happy to be here today to share what we've done in Pennsylvania to improve hiring and a bit about what we're focused on next. So to better compete with the private sector and other government employers, one of our Governor Shapiro's first initiatives when he took office in 2023 was to reduce our overall time to hire. As Kritzia said, slow hiring was one of the major themes, and we were right in the thick of that as well. Our average time to hire in the Commonwealth was around 90 days when Governor Shapiro took office. And in the past 3 years, our HR team has really worked hard to streamline the hiring process. I'm happy to say our efforts have been very successful, as the length of time to fill positions in Pennsylvania has decreased from 90 days to 54, which is about a 40% reduction in the past 3 years. And a large part of this reduction can really be attributed to 3 key actions: more strategic, faster interviews, as we found the interview stage was usually accounting for about half of the overall time to hire, earlier conditional offers, and continued support and reinforced messaging from our senior leadership. So in terms of the interviews, hiring managers have been encouraged to keep interview panels small and flexible. We ask that they conduct brief first-round interviews via telephone to quickly narrow down any large, unmanageable candidate pools. We have also moved some steps of the hiring process to post-conditional offer or post-hire, such as supplemental employment approval or verification of any experience and training needed for the requirements. And we also made some steps optional, like reference checks, as we found they weren't really providing much value. And that has really enabled agencies to extend conditional job offers much sooner and get those candidates on the hook and let them know that they're our selection. Our HR team also offers increased support to our hiring managers. They are really trying to be deliberate about telling hiring managers when to expect candidates to interview, so our hiring managers can reserve time on their calendars and be deliberate about saving time so they're ready to go. We also assist with scheduling interviews when necessary and even drafting interview questions if asked. Overall, the expedited hiring really allows our agencies to increase the efficiency in the work that they do to support their missions. It improves customer service to our citizens, and it ultimately is shown to increase retention. As was mentioned earlier, we also did see an opportunity to recruit federal employees who have been impacted by layoffs in federal agencies, or maybe who were just looking for a career change. In response to this, we created a webpage specifically for federal workers that highlights our top recruitment needs, and it cross-matches those with federal job equivalencies, which we hope makes it very easy for federal workers to quickly see where they would fit in our workforce. Wherever possible, we actually updated our job requirements to include federal work experience that will qualify for our jobs, and we added 2 questions to our employment application to capture federal employment experience. That has really helped our evaluation team, that human review, not AI, that has really helped our evaluation team to be able to quickly cross-match applicants' federal experience with our job requirements, which further streamlines the hiring process and speeds up the evaluation piece of it. And I'm happy to say our most recent data shows that we have hired 816 former federal employees with the Commonwealth in the past year. Another thing we've been focused on is our benefits. As I think everybody knows, comprehensive benefits are critical to attracting and retaining employees. So in that vein, we've continued to offer new and expand benefits to support employees' wellness and work-life balance. Some recent things we've done are our commuter benefits. We have reduced commuting costs through tax savings, established new agreements with Pennsylvania colleges and universities to provide tuition benefits to our employees and their dependents. And we eliminated the waiting period for new hires to enroll their dependents into medical, prescription drug, dental, and vision coverage without paying additional out-of-pocket costs. So new employees no longer need to worry about gaps in coverage for themselves or their loved ones and can keep more money in their pockets. And where we're focused next is really our current workforce with an emphasis on our future leaders. We have numerous leadership development programs that we've implemented to prepare our employees for future leadership roles. And we've expanded the capacity of several programs so more of our workforce can participate. And we're also focused on opening doors for new talent to enter government employment. We've seen a huge success in cultivating internship, apprenticeship, and fellowship programs, expanding some that we've already had in place and creating new ones as well. The commitment to providing exceptional service to Pennsylvanians is really at the core of everything we do here in Pennsylvania, and it really begins with having our positions filled. We have a workforce of nearly 80,000 throughout the state, so there's a constant need for talented employees in a huge variety of fields. We literally have hundreds of jobs open at any given time. You can check us out at employment.pa.gov, and we need to fill these as quickly as possible. So I really am happy that we've made significant strides, but there's always room for further improvement. And our HR leadership is continually exploring other creative approaches to reimagine hiring, as well as the applicant and employee experience. I'm so happy to have been able to speak to you today. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions or would like to connect. And now I will turn things over to Helen Smart from Tucson.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to meet you. I'm Helen Smart. I'm the Deputy Human Resources Director for the City of Tucson, Arizona. And you can probably tell from my accent that I'm not originally from Tucson. I'm from the United Kingdom. And I've been in Tucson since around 2007. Well, I'm going to talk to you today about a two-pronged approach that Tucson is taking in order to bolster its talent pipelines. The first is that we partnered with the University of Arizona. They run a program for Master of Public Administration program. And we often have students doing their capstone projects. We give them real world projects to do at City of Tucson. And for example, this year we hosted 4 student cohorts and they worked on different projects. For example, for Tucson Water Department, they created a registered apprenticeship program for civil engineers because we're experiencing real hardship in trying to attract them. So we thought we would try to grow our own. And that's going to take 4 years for them to get through that to become licensed and registered engineers. Other examples of capstone projects they worked on were for exit interviews and stay interviews, and we've already run those in our workforce, and we're working on the results and making changes according to those results. And another group worked with the city manager's department on an employee workforce-wide survey with some changes that we're considering making. So these projects, capstone projects, are great. They give students an understanding of what public sector work is, and hopefully increases their desire to either want to come and work for us or maybe one of the other cities or states out there. So some of them stay, some of them don't. They go back to where they came from after they graduate. So that's one approach. The second approach is that we've partnered with the Department of Defense. They have a skill bridge program which places transitioning service members into temporary work assignments during the last 180 days in the military. The military pays their pay and benefits, and the program allows them to gain civilian work experience and explore potential career paths. We've actually made job offers to 87% of the ones that have been with us. And so we've really hired a large number through that program. The people that didn't come, sometimes they took jobs elsewhere or they decided the job they tried with us wasn't for them, but at least they tried it. So I think that was a good experience for them. And both these approaches, I wouldn't say they completely address all labor shortages, but they definitely help. And I think they're things that you can do even if you're only a small HR department. I have 75 staff, but I think smaller departments could also do this program. And that's why it would be helpful to you. And it's at very little cost since you don't have to pay the wages. It's Department of Defense paying that. Yeah, I think that sums it up for the City of Tucson. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Miranda and Helen. So just want to remind everybody, if you would like to read more about the two featured governments today and some other examples of cities and states tackling hiring challenges, download our report. We're going to drop it in the chat again. I see St. Louis, Missouri is here, as I know they're a featured example as well. So good to see y'all here. All right, so in just a moment, we're going to bring on another local government partner, which is the city of Knoxville. Knoxville is one of 12 cities that are participating in Work for America's brand new Talent Accelerator program. So let me share a little bit about that work before we bring them on. So earlier, I discussed the operational challenges that are hindering public sector hiring. So even when there's more applicants, the process can be slow. And sometimes the best way to address those challenges is to begin by getting clarity and alignment on how local government hiring processes actually work in practice, not in theory, right? Like what is really, really happening. That's why over the last 7 weeks, Work for America has been working closely with HR teams from 12 cities across the country to do a deep dive on exactly how hiring operations work. So through our 8-week workshop called Talent Accelerator, we have partnered with 50 plus city HR and operations leaders to map the end-to-end hiring process for each city that's participating, from requisition to hire start date. Our goal is, kind of like you heard from Pennsylvania and Tucson today, is to identify the most effective intervention points where our government partners can make realistic, practical hiring process improvements that will have a high impact on turnaround times, but will be low cost. So that could include finding really specific bottlenecks that are maybe stalling applications, areas of misalignment, or other steps where candidate experience can suffer. All right, so with that, I'll introduce the city of Knoxville. They're one of the cities we've been working with in the Talent Accelerator workshop, and we'll hear from them about what that experience has been like. So we're joined by Chad Weth and Mary Margaret Murray, two of the city of Knoxville's HR professionals participating. Chad is currently the Deputy Chief Operating Officer, and Mary Margaret is a two-time alum of University of Tennessee, but she is the Deputy Director of Human Resources, overseeing all functions of HR and the whole team and process. So with that, welcome Mary Margaret and Chad.
Hello, yeah, thank you for having us. Excited to talk to you all today. I'm going to be fairly brief, and then I'm going to kick it over to Mary Margaret to finish it off. But yeah, as Trizea was mentioning, we have been undertaking a project to basically map our hiring process. And I think a question that has been asked of us is, why are we doing this now? And I think one of the biggest reasons HR, Human Resource Department benefits, and our civil service team most recently became under operations as a city department, which has been, I think it's great. It helps them get out in front of all of our directors in the city and communicate things that are happening. And another thing, HR over the past really since COVID has really done a really good job of improving our recruiting process. We were talking just a few minutes ago about how the number of applications have changed. We have doubled our applications since 21 to 25. We've gone from getting about 4,000 applications a year to 8,000 applications. So we have done a great job recruiting. That's Mary Margaret and her team have done that, and really trying to improve now on the hiring process. So beginning again in January 26, HR started reporting through operations. Like a lot of people that have been doing this project, we felt like we need to improve the time of hire. Throughout the years, everybody likes to, I've been here 20 years at the city of Knoxville. So everybody always likes to say it takes too long to hire. That's just like a key statement. So one thing I've been pushing HR on is again, let's improve that. So this could not have come at a better time for us and what we're working towards, which again is to track everything. Sometimes, we have our civil service systems, we have to test, we have to do job analysis. We've identified, I know Mary Margaret's going to talk about this more, but 87 steps in our hiring process, right? So, but that's not always on HR. Like sometimes as a director, we would send things to get done and the director would take 3-4 weeks to return it back in and still say, it takes too long to hire people. We are wanting to track this process from pillar to post, from the second a requisition goes through, from the second a new hire starts. So this was great timing for us to tackle this project because it's really wanted to focus on our new hire and onboarding process. So this is just helping us to find some of that low-hanging fruit where we can improve the hiring process. I'll turn it over to Mary Margaret.
Yeah, definitely want to echo what Chad mentioned and so much of what has been shared on today's webinar already. I mean, I think that Talent Accelerator has been an absolute gift for the city of Knoxville. As Chad mentioned, we've known that things haven't been great, but we've not really taken an opportunity to sit down and map everything out. And so finding out that we did have over 80 steps was so shocking to us. We knew it took a while, but you kind of become desensitized to it at a certain point. You live it every day. And the program's been so helpful for us because we've been able to receive such dedicated coaching and mentorship from the Work for America team. Not only like how do we get our process map going, but also what do we do now that we have this big mess of a thing. And so it's been really great for us to help identify that we have our two main bottlenecks. What we're seeing for us is that it's from the job posting preparation and the interview process sides. So as Chad mentioned, it's not just HR, which is great because I know sometimes your HR teams can kind of take the hit for where the delays coming from. But it's allowed us to help walk out with really clear insights and what do we do next? What are some small and some large scale initiatives initiatives we can tackle to help modernize and operationalize these hiring processes. We're so overjoyed that we're not having as many issues with getting applications, but we're kind of just cutting we're cutting down in the fact that we're losing people as we go. And so all of our recruiting efforts are great, but how can we continue that same level of effort with the folks that we've gotten to even just attempt an application? So I know for us, some of the things that we're looking at, is updating our job validation or our test validation process through our job analysis. We have 4 spreadsheets we use to do that were set up in 2006 and haven't been updated since. So we are stoked to revise that. Even just simple things as to who needs to be on a requisition approval process. And we've really enjoyed working in the cohort-based model with this program. We're seeing a lot of other cities are sharing the same problems, or they've been able to provide, some really easy, I want to say wins for us of, hey, have you tried thinking about it this way? So we're so grateful for the Work for America team and to the Talent Accelerator. We're honored to be one of the 12 cities, and I really hope that you all consider applying on the next round. And with that, I'll kick it back to Shifra. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mary Margaret. And we are also so happy that you are among the 12 cities in our first Talent Accelerator cohort. So thank you for that and for being here today. And as we just said, hi, everybody. I'm Shifra Goldenberg. I'm the Chief Program Officer here at Work for America. And we just heard from 3 incredible state and local government leaders that are thinking about their hiring process strategically. And these are great examples of leaders who understand the connection between having the right talent in place and the nitty-gritty HR modernization that requires, and ultimately delivering on promises to residents and serving the people that we care about in our communities. At Work for America, our whole goal is to help other government leaders along that journey, wherever they start. So in our conversations with our 300 government partners through our Civic Match program, the 12 cities and Talent Accelerator, and all the folks that we interviewed for the Frontlines report, we asked, what do you really need? Kritsia spent a long time kind of laying out the changes and the challenges. And so we asked everybody, how can we help? And we heard 3 main messages come through. The first is actual capacity to get more done. So not just white papers, not just theories, but like people who can get their hands dirty and help governments who are trying to do more with less get their work done. The second is connection to peers. It can feel isolating to do this work, pushing really hard within your own city, and it can really help to know that there are other people going through the exact same challenges in other jurisdictions. So we heard about that desire for connection from a lot of folks. And then finally, we heard about looking for broader change in how people think and talk about government. This isn't all about things that governments can do from the inside to improve the workforce. This is also about getting people in the communities to be excited about going into public service and see it as a way that they can make change and support their communities. All of these insights together guide our strategy here at Work for America and the programming that we seek to offer. We help expand recruitment capacity through Civic Match, which is our free job matching platform that directly connects mission-driven job seekers with public sector opportunities. And that is something that is available immediately and today for all of the public sector leaders on the line. And we would be very happy to share more information. And that helps to deliver immediate capacity, fill the vacancies that we have today so that we have strong leaders in place to do the hiring modernization work that we heard about today. Second, through the Talent Accelerator program, which we also talked about, we are supporting the hard work of really doing meaningful change to how hiring gets done. And we are intentionally doing this in a peer learning model so that we're creating opportunities for leaders to meet each other, build connections, and learn from each other's successes. And finally, we are working to strengthen the narrative of public service so that more people in today's job seeker population and tomorrow's see government as a viable, meaningful career and one that they want to pursue. When governments can hire effectively, they strengthen their ability to deliver on the core promise of public service, which is responsive, reliable, and high quality outcomes for our communities. We're going to leave you before we move to our final closing administration with one assignment to take with you this week, which is just to notice. Notice the ways that public servants are showing up around you. Notice the ways that in your day-to-day life, things that you're using wouldn't exist without local government. Think about what that makes possible for your community and what it means to have that in place for tomorrow. So with that, thank you all so much for being here. We will put up this QR code once again for the report. Please grab the link from the chat. And we're also going to drop in the chat a quick survey. Please take a minute. It'll just take 1 or 2 minutes to fill out. And it really allows us to design events that are as useful as possible for all of you. We are really honored to be here today and to be working with exceptional public sector leaders like the ones you just heard from. So a huge thanks to our partners, Derek Kilmer from the Rockefeller Foundation, Miranda Martin from Pennsylvania, Helen from Tucson, and Mary Margaret and Chad from Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you especially to the Rockefeller Foundation for your support of the report that we shared today. And we'd love to stay in touch with all of you. You can learn more about our Talent Accelerator program, which will be launching a new cohort in the fall at the link in the chat. You can find us at the email address that is showing on the screen. And we look forward to seeing all of you very soon. Thank you again for joining and have a wonderful rest of your week.